So it's all eyes to Queensland now for the upcoming election fun this weekend. The local government elections are being held across that state. Wow, Damo, huge news. Who cares? Why would anyone give a stuff about the Brisbane City Council or Gold Coast City Council elections? Well, bear with me. It is a big deal because the Liberal Party is such a train wreck nationally at the moment. The Liberal Party is not in power in any state or territory in this country or federally except Tasmania. And they hold minority government in Tasmania, not even a majority government. So since April 2022, the Premier of Tasmania has been Jeremy Rockliff, and he's the leader of the Liberal Party. But the Liberals have only got 11 of that state's 25 lower house parliamentary seats, so it's a minority government. The only Liberal government in the land at state or federal level, and it is not even a majority. But hey, no problem. Nothing to see here, folks, say the Liberal people, especially the left. Let's keep doing what we've been doing and bat for the centre, the small target approach. There will be an election in Tassie on the 23rd of March in a couple of weeks. Lucky for Tasmanians, they're getting 10 more politicians, aren't they? Lucky, hooray. The Parliament's going to go from 25 seats to 35 seats. The Liberals will try to win a fourth term. Premier Rockliff is as Liberal centre-left as you can get. He's no Conservative or even a classical Liberal. He campaigned strongly for The Voice against Peter Dutton, and he wants to change the date of Australia Day. Tasmania is a very bad place if you're a classical Liberal or someone who watches this show. Anyway, back to Queensland, and specifically the Brisbane City Council. Brisbane is the biggest Liberal Party government in Australia now. And that is why this little local council election, that round that's happening in the Sunshine State this weekend, actually does matter nationally if you're wondering what's happening in our country politically. Brisbane City has 1.2 million voters. It's one of the biggest local council areas in the world. And it's all the Liberal Party has got left in terms of a real majority government anywhere in Australia. The Lord Mayor of Brisbane is Adrian Schrinner. No rock star, but a popular, likeable, safe pair of hands. His opponent in the Labor Party is an unknown and unlikely to be a threat. But the Greens have fielded a candidate for Lord Mayor, a guy called Jonathan Sriranganathan. And Brisbane is a big green town. All three federal electorates covering central Brisbane are green. People like green things. They like nature and the environment. They just don't realise that the Greens' political party isn't green, it's red. It's a watermelon, green on the outside only. And Jonathan Sri, as he used to be known before he changed his name, is as red can be.
A public guide to breaking the law.
Honestly, I think it's better that people take the time and work out whether a home is actually empty.
Councillor for the Gabba, Jonathan Sriranganathan, taking a different approach to address Brisbane's housing crisis, sharing on social media a how-to for squatters, encouraging people to break into empty homes. Before a disclaimer, he doesn't encourage the behaviour he's just described. The Lord Mayor took to Twitter saying the endorsement of illegal activity is a misuse of Sriranganathan's position, sickening and disingenuous.
I don't want to live in a city where people have to squat to find a roof over their head. I'd much prefer that the government did something about this. I think there's already an uptake in squatting. I'm seeing it all over the inner city at the moment.
Perhaps now, more to come.
Yeah, you reckon? Wow. That clip was part of a story from Channel 7 News Brisbane just over a year ago. Sriranganathan said he was just trying to draw attention to the housing crisis. He wasn't actually encouraging people to squat. Okay. Just like the time he said that shoplifting from Coles or Woolies was okay. A position that he hasn't backed away from, repeating as recently as October in this interview with Brisbane's Radio 4BC's Peter Gleeson.
Just in Woolies and Coles, not in IGA small businesses.
If you can't afford to eat.
That's the most irresponsible thing I've ever heard, Jono.
Well, what I
For a
said,
prospective Lord Mayor candidate.
what I said was that if people are poor, they can't afford the rent, they're living below the poverty line, I think it is ethically justifiable.
That's anarchy, mate.
No, it is ethically justifiable.
That's anarchy. No wonder you're an anarchist.
Let me finish. I think it is ethically justifiable if people who cannot afford to put food on the table, whose kids are going
Break the law.
hungry, shoplift.
That's the Greens, folks. And if you think ideas like that are kooky and will never affect you, just take a look at the mad radical left Democrats in power in the United States and what's happening in cities like San Francisco and Portland. It is not okay to shoplift. Ever. That is stealing, and it destroys the basic fundamental fabric of our society. That's why we have Social Security. That's why we pay taxes. That's why there are charities to feed the poor. That's why if you're genuinely hungry and having a hard time, good Aussies will step up and help. But stealing? No, that's never right. Now, I know Coles and Woolies aren't popular right now, but they do only make 2.5% profit each. And when you steal from your local Woolies, you're stealing from the ordinary Aussies who work there and the ordinary Aussies who shop there, because they have to pay for it. Shoplifting is wrong, and it is never justifiable ever, period. But if you wanted to know what the Greens were all about, folks, that was it. Now, I live in a fairly nice suburb of Brisbane, very green, lots of rich houses, and it's federally and state a green suburb with a green state MP and a green federal MP. And you see these multi-million-dollar houses with signs for the Greens candidates, these champagne socialists, or just politically ignorant environmentalists. They think that this Jonathan 3 bloke should be Lord Mayor. Well, okay, then maybe we should round up a few Greens and have a squat in those multi-million-dollar homes. They can just pop around and spend the night. We'll be able to identify the houses that are okay with it by the green election signs out front, right? A joke, but this is pretty serious stuff, folks, because the right to own property and be free of squatters and shoplifters is fundamental to a liberal economy. How? Well, if you can't be sure that what you work for, what you build, what you invest in for the long term, whether it's a house or a business, will actually be yours in the future, then you won't bother investing the money, time and effort to build it and work on it, and then our society is going to fall to bits. It's one of the theories as to how the Roman Empire collapsed. They actually stopped worrying about enforcing or even recording property rights, who owned what. So when we don't clearly have laws to indicate who owns what and actually then enforce those laws, the whole game falls apart. So far from some kumbaya loving utopia of everyone sharing and caring, you get war and murder and violence and chaos. You get no production and productivity because nobody can be bothered building anything because they don't know if they're going to be able to own it in the future. What's the point? And you therefore get national poverty, more poor people, more pain, more suffering. There is nothing humanitarian, ethical, humane or good about advocating squatting and shoplifting. And this is why the Greens and people like Jono 3, as the hippies in Brisbane's West End and the Gabba area affectionately call him, is no hero. And he's not even an amusing guy to have a laugh at. The Greens are bloody dangerous. We must never ever vote for any far left political party. If you lean left, stick with Labor, or maybe just grow up and join the adults on the centre right.